Nucleotides are the functional units of DNA and RNA. Each nucleotide is composed of three essential parts that you need to be familiar with for the USMLE. Number one, a phosphate group located on the 5' end of the nucleotide, a 5-carbon sugar, which can either be a ribose for RNA or a deoxyribose for DNA, and finally, a nitrogenous base, which can either be a purine or a pyrimidine. A purine is a double ring structure, whereas pyrimidines are single ringed. The three components shown on this slide represent the basic structure of a nucleotide. This structure forms the foundation for several high-yield biochemical processes, including DNA and RNA synthesis, as well as purine and pyrimidine metabolism. At the time of this recording, I may or may not have already created videos on these topics, but stay in tune. On a side note, one term we have not yet discussed is nucleoside. A nucleoside is the exact same thing as a nucleotide, but without the phosphate group. This is all you need to know about what a nucleoside is. Now let's dive deeper into the two types of nitrogenous bases, purines and pyrimidines. This is especially important because compared to the other components of a nucleotide, the USMLE loves to focus more on the details of these bases. Purines and pyrimidines, much like nucleotides, have distinct structures. Purines are characterized by their double ring structure, whereas pyrimidines have a single ring structure. Here's an easy way to remember this. The word purine has 2 syllables, just like its 2 rings. This leaves pyrimidines as the odd ones out, and hence they have only a single ring instead of 2. Next, there are 2 types of purines, adenine and guanine. In contrast, there are 3 types of pyrimidines, cytosine, uracil, and thymine. It's important to note that uracil is found only in RNA, whereas thymine is found only in DNA. A high-yield point to remember is that if uracil is methylated, that is, if a methyl group is added to it, it becomes thymine. It's also important to note that the synthesis of these nitrogenous bases involves specific amino acids. For purines, 3 amino acids are required: glycine, aspartate, and glutamine. On the other hand, pyrimidine synthesis requires only 2 amino acids, glutamine and aspartate. These required amino acids are very high yield and they are often asked across the NBMEs. And this slide overall covers basically all the fundamental information that you need to know about nitrogenous bases. While it may seem to include nitpicky and almost like random details, these are exactly the kind of specifics that the USMLE often tests, which are details that we might often just gloss over when we first study nucleotides. And to help you retain everything on this slide, I've created a mnemonic that is both unique and efficient, unlike what you'll find in other resources. For purines, the mnemonic is pure cats gag on apples and grapes. Here, pure represents purines. Gag corresponds to the required amino acids, which are glycine, aspartate, and glutamine. And finally, apples and grapes, of course, stands for adenine and guanine. For pyrimidines, the mnemonic is pyramids in Giza are cute. Pyramids, of course, corresponds to pyrimidine synthesis, whereas the A and G in Giza correspond to glutamine and aspartate, respectively. Giza, if you didn't already know, is actually the place in Egypt which is famous for its pyramids, and hence it actually fits really well with the rest of the pyrimidine mnemonic. Q is the last word, and it corresponds to the name of the bases. What makes these 2 mnemonics so effective is their sentence structure. They both start with the type of base, then the amino acids required for the synthesis, and finally the nitrogenous bases themselves. This consistent sequence ensures that you have everything you need all in just one efficient sentence, making it easier to remember and apply during the exam when you're going to need it the most. And with that, we can now wrap up our discussion on nucleotides. While this was a short video with some cool mnemonics, the key takeaway is that this serves as a preview to the high-yield pathways that nucleotides are involved in. such as purine and pyrimidine synthesis, as well as DNA and RNA synthesis. These topics will either be covered soon or may already be available on my channel, depending on when you're watching this. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to stay tuned as I continue to drop more high-yield content.